one more day until baseball counts in Major League Baseball, in the U.S. at least. It's going to feel like a long time as we got to wait till the Guardians play at 10 o'clock Eastern on Thursday evening. Until then, we got another position preview coming your way. It's first base. Can Josh Naylor repeat his 2023 season? How much longer is he going to be in Cleveland? When does the Kyle Manzardo era start? And there are a lot of fun first base draft prospects in this year's class. Let's get through it.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. This is our take 4 on the day, cursed episode. We'll see how it goes from here. I do want to point out very quickly, I thought Jason Stark had a great article on The Athletic doing what he does best, which is pointing out something I didn't realize, that this could be the first time since 1977 there is not a 300-game winner, a 500 home runner, or a 3,000 hitter in the big leagues. And before that, it was World War II. Just kind of a fun fact, a fun little thing I hadn't realized. And one of those things that, I mean, we're very far off from many of those things right now. It's kind of an interesting thing when you look at the shifting of the game. But yeah, wanted to just bring that up because I thought that was fun. Now that I've mentioned history, this episode is doubly doomed. 200 downloads tomorrow. Itself. It's already, right. We're already in trouble. But first base, the base of first, a history of trouble for Cleveland for a lot of years now. Is it over?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in 2024 and beyond. 2023 was a good year for first base for Cleveland. Josh Naylor had a fantastic season for the Guardians, obviously. Career highs in pretty much everything. He hit 308, 354 on base, 589 or 489 slugging, I should say, 31 doubles, 17 homers, 128 WRC plus. Also, pretty good year with the glove. He was
much improved.
5+5 in outs above average and 88th percentile in fielding range on StatCast. So all around a good performance. Even hit lefties last year, which we're going to talk about. But the real question for Josh Naylor, at least there's 2 questions, maybe 3. One, can he repeat what he did in 2023? B, can he stay healthy? And C, will there be an extension? We'll talk about left-handers, but there'll be an extension. But let's start off with, can Naylor repeat 2023? Do we think what he did last year is repeatable? Because, the year before was a solid year for him. It was a 119 WRC plus in 2022 in the Guardians playoff year. He hit 20 home runs, so he didn't hit career high in home runs last year. He certainly would have had he stayed healthy. He missed a month with an oblique issue for all those that believe that after the trade deadline, Josh Naylor was sitting out. Josh Naylor is not somebody I think would sit out for any reason for his teammates, no matter what's going on. That was a hard interesting thing that went around for a while. But he really improved last year. We talked about Jose Ramirez as a guy who could take advantage of the shift going away and how much he could exploit that. Josh Naylor actually really benefited from it because his BABIP went way up for the first time in his career. He even stole 10 bases. That was pretty amazing, right? Everything Josh Naylor did looked in the right direction last year. So can he repeat it in 2023? Or 2024, I should say.
I'll be curious to see the left-handed aspect. That's definitely a thing. I'm curious to see if that can be retained. I think the bat is, he has proven to be the guy the Marlins thought they were taking. Most of us thought, honestly, if I'm being very honest, that it was an overdraft at the time, but he has performed. He's turned into a good hitter. Basically, the only thing that's going to hold him back is inevitably we know he will get hurt. As you say on the show, the best predictor of future health is past health, and he has never had a healthy season. And he's going to miss a month at some point, and that's just unfortunately part and parcel of who he is as a player.
Yeah, I can't quite remember what happened in 2022. He only played 122 games that year, so I can't remember what the injury was for him. Was that when he was coming back from the leg injury in 21? Was there? I think. Oh, you know what? There was some ankle issues with him.
Yeah.
Some of it was stemming from the 21 injury, which honestly, the fact that he came back from that horrific injury in 2021 and had the season he did in 2022, and he only missed 40 games. That's pretty darn impressive. High pain tolerance right there, and a lot of work to get back. And let's consider that in 2021 winter going into 2022, He didn't have a normal offseason. He was rehabbing. It's not like he could go out and work on hitting. He had to get that leg strong and be ready to play. So impressive for him to be able to come back in the first place.
Yes.
And I think, you'll take the same season from him again this year, but the month missed is the big challenge is for Naylor. I think all the indicators say that what he did was real last year. A 326 BABIP, okay, that might drop 10, 20 points max, which could be alarming, but that would drop to what, 280 batting average, which is still livable for him. You love to get to 20 home runs. Fly ball rate, good. He hit more fly balls than he ever had in his career last year. More line drives. His hard hit rate was pretty good last year, actually a career high in that as well. So all the indicators were super positive. He didn't strike out more than he ever does. He actually struck out the least amount of times in the last 3 years. The walk rate was okay. The one thing you can really say about Naylor is probably his aggression. It'd be great if he was maybe a little more patient at the plate. That's what the only thing you can really say besides health.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It is definitely the area that we would like to see him just be a little more patient because he is such a good hitter. But yeah, I think
it's nitpicking. Yeah,
it is. It's one of those things right now with when we look at him, he's such a important part of this team right now. It was always kind of funny to me this offseason how many various rumors popped up because they just don't have enough things to replace if they don't have him.
I mean, I know Jose hits the most home runs, but I mean, out of anybody in this lineup who has the most raw power, it's definitely Josh Naylor.
Yes.
Bo Naylor might even have more raw power than Jose. Jose just gets the most out of his contact by pulling everything and hitting it in the air. So that's a whole different animal. Bo and Josh can hit the ball 450 feet in batting practice. The indicators for Naylor against left-handers to me all look very promising when you look at what he did last year. So 308 BABIP against lefties, that's sustainable. The walk rate was only 5.5%, but that's who he is. Only struck out 10% of the time, and 127 WRC plus. And this is how he did it. He cut down on ground balls against lefties, so he's pulling the ball into the ground less against left-handers. He hit more line drives, he hit more fly balls, and honestly, he stopped trying to pull the ball against them. So in 2022, he had a 50% pull rate against lefties. Last year, only 37. So he was more content to go all fields against lefties. And that really helped his numbers come through. 299, 347, 474 from the left side against lefties. So I feel like it's sustainable. I feel like, is he going to have as much success in 2024 against lefties? Maybe not. Teams will look at what he did and try to adjust. But I think what he did suggests that he is going to be fine against left-handers from now on. You don't need to platoon him other than just a day off against maybe a tough lefty and just for health purposes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of more of a wait and see approach, if I'm being honest, when it comes to that. I just want to see if it's going to maintain, just because the history was, I mean, heading into last year, you and I were both of okay, can we just glue him to the bench against the lefties? I know the data is there to show it. I just need to see a, reproduction.
Follow up.
I want to see that it's going to continue on. It's not to say that it can't. I'm not saying that at all. It definitely can. I'm just curious to see if it will.
I don't think the offense can afford to have him not in the lineup every day. They need him to do that again this year. Honestly, that's for this team to have enough offense to contend for a division title and go to the playoffs. They need him to do that again. So I don't think he can be out of the order. You do have Arias who can play first. And again, what he did against left-handers last year, not what you want to do. And then there's David Fry, who we can talk about as well. We'll also talk about Kyle Manzardo. But the other storyline with Josh Naylor is, what's the biggest obstacle in the way of an extension for him at this point? Is it it's probably years, right? It's probably not the money. I mean, Cleveland's going to, have some wounds to lick over the Miles Straw extension, but I don't know how gun shy they'll be over that. But it's for Cleveland, I feel like it's always the years they have to commit, especially, we've talked about before on here that is there really a sweet spot that exists for Cleveland and Josh Naylor in terms of how long he's going to want to be locked up for in a contract and how long Cleveland's willing to go with him. So are years the biggest obstacle with him? Is it the length?
I think I think it is a lot of things. It's years, it's length, it's how close he is to free agency, it's his health history. It's that, at the end of the day, Jose and him are both likely going to be DHs in the next 3 years. So if you do go for something like 5 years, then all of a sudden they're blocked out. And it's just, you're watching two guys move towards needing that position more and more. So I think, I think that with health is really the bigger issue.
Yeah, definitely health. I just think that, Cleveland's not going to want to commit long-term with Naylor years wise, because like you said, at some point he will become a DH, and, he is missing about 40 games a year. So the Athletic predicted 5 years, $55 million would be the extension. I don't know if that will get it done. I think it would. I just don't know if Cleveland would offer 5 years. I don't know. I looked at extensions, pre-arb extensions on Spotrac, and, they had age 28 season. Matt Carpenter got 652. So that sounds about right. Anthony Rizzo got 741, but he was only 23. So Matt Carpenter is essentially the best comparison at age 28, got 6 years, 52. So that's in line with 555. And I don't know if 6 years is where Cleveland's going to want to go.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. So yeah, it in a perfect world, it would go, you'd get him locked up. You wouldn't have to worry about all of it. But unfortunately with the health, it's just not a perfect world. And those health injuries, talking to people who are in medical areas like that, those are things that tend to be cumulative and tend to have longstanding repercussions.
Yeah. All right. After we come back, number to know, 122. We'll talk about why 122 is important with Josh Naylor. We'll get to Kyle Manzardo and other guys at first base. And we'll, of course, talk about some of the prospects in the system. And we definitely want to get to some draft prospects from 2024 because it is a fun class. So all that coming up.
And we're going to talk about our good friends over at PrizePicks right now. PrizePicks I've talked about before. So they are, you're going to pick more or less. It's as easy as that. And when you're looking at a place to go and do your daily fantasy, PrizePicks is the perfect place because it's not you versus 100 other people or 1,000 other people. It's you versus the numbers. It's just you versus the numbers. You're not competing against anyone. You're not competing against someone who's got, running simulations on their computer that you can't even understand and has that knowledge. You are just you against the numbers. Who is going to be the one that more or less in 2 to 6 stat categories? Simple as that. It is the simplest way to do your daily fantasy. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word. I just created my account. It's pretty simple. You go through and just use that. So you can download the app or go to their browser for a first deposit match up to $100. That's right. Locked on MLB, all lowercase, all one word. First match up to $100. Who doesn't want free money? PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right, we said 122. Why does 122 matter? Well, that's how many games Josh Naylor has played in his career. That's the career high. That was in 2022. Over under this year, Jeff, on 122 games played by Josh Naylor.
I know, dead air, what everyone wants on a show. I'm going to say 130. I'll go over. I still think he's going to miss about 30 games because that's just what he's done. Like his body can't hold up to the rigors.
Yeah, until he proves otherwise, I have to say he's going to miss some time. But I will say I'm with you there. I was thinking the same thing about 130. So we'll go over, but not too far over. But yeah, until he proves otherwise, there's probably going to be a week or two, if not more, that he misses. Can Kyle Manzardo, though, make it better if he does have to miss some time? When's Kyle Manzardo going to come up? That's the real question. Didn't make the team out of spring training. De Los Santos also didn't make it. And, we can get into service time manipulation, other stuff. There are some things Kyle Manzardo could work on, but how far into the season do you think we make it before Kyle Manzardo finally gets called up? Are we thinking it's going to be a service time thing where he gets called up at like the end of April, or are we going to wait until the Super 2 deadline, which could be a while?
Honestly, it's one of those situations where I think a lot of our listeners are right, who have made the comment that like the DH spot isn't just about, one player. It's about like,
Sure.
Jose playing there. It's about Naylor playing there some. It's about getting Arias reps, getting Freeman reps, getting Florio reps. So I don't think it is necessarily a date that is based off of Super 2. I don't think it's a date that's based off of, listen, they're definitely not promoting him before they get beyond the point where they would get an extra year of service control. 1 month,
Which is like a week
now,
2
or
weeks.
I think it's 18 days is the technicality.
Yeah,
I think
it's not long. Yeah.
But I think it just comes down to how players are performing. They don't like to make big moves till June. Honestly, I don't think it will happen before June, late May, early June. But if guys are performing, it could be even later. If guys are really pooping the bed, to put it PC friendly, then it could be like mid-June, mid-May. But I think it is more dependent on, how they're using that spot, how guys are responding, and also like how healthy is Naylor? Does Naylor have his injury early? Does he have it later? Does it look like playing every day is affecting him as opposed to being more in that DH role? We know he doesn't love being a DH. He'd rather be out there every day. But, and as you say, I mean, he put in the work to become an above average defender. He really did. So you lose something when you do pull him out, unless you put Gabby there, who quickly learned that position and played well. So I think it's more of maybe I'm not cynical enough, but I think it's like all the permutations about what's going around the DH first base positioning.
This will shock you, but I agree. You're right. And some of our commenters also said this as well. We had some good everydayers just saying, it gives you time to work in Arias and Fry and Florial and move guys around, get him half days off, get Jose at DH. So, leaving that spot open. I don't think they'll bring up Manzardo until they've made a decision on, does Arias fit here long term? Is Florio working out? Any of these guys, if they decide it's working out with them. So one of those guys probably has to be out of the mix for you to be ready to commit to having 2 first baseman DH guys on the roster, especially hitting left-handed. So I agree with you. Other players do factor into what's going to happen here. Also, the same thing for Manzardo. He's got to hit well. Cleveland has a history of always waiting on guys to come up when they're doing well in AAA. So if he gets off to a rough start, they're going to wait until he's in the middle of the hot streak to call him up. I'd be surprised if it was before Memorial Day. I think that's their sweet time right there. I don't think it has anything to do with Super 2. I think it'd be silly, but, you never know. Do you have any concerns about Manzardo versus left-handed pitching? Because the numbers suggest that it wasn't good last year, but I'm also willing to throw the guy a mulligan. He had the shoulder injury.
It was a weird year.
He had the issue where he was worried about his mom's health, and all that factors in. The numbers below that against left-handed pitchers were much better, but we also don't know not to take data too seriously until you get to AAA, and even then you have to account for some misgivings there. But are you concerned long-term about his ability to hit left-handers?
Not as of yet, because we want to see what he can do, right? Like there's like I said, we just learned this with Naylor. Like you don't want to paint with too broad of a brush too early. So let's see what he can do. Last year he had a litany of issues and a litany of reasons why there were those issues, and he still performed pretty well. So let's not just sit there. I mean, and I get this a lot whenever I'm positive about him. I know people love when I talk about my interactions online, but people are quick to jump in and say like, well, he's never going to hit lefties. It's like, isn't that a little premature? I mean,
like you said,
it's not great. We'll have to see. I can't guarantee it one way or another, if I'm being honest, but like, I'll be curious to see. I don't think you can sit there and say, as of right now, that this dude is guaranteed to just fail.
Be a platoon.
I can't guarantee you that he's going to be their answer at first base. There's a lot of positive data to say yes, but I can already see people getting mad at me for mentioning anything outside the show. But yeah, I mean, there are people who just think, but I do think there are a lot of this is a fan base that has a lot of negativity, unfortunately, over the past few years. And a lot of people who the loudest people are the ones who jump in for every prospect and tell you why they're going to fail and why this is a morbid franchise. So I don't believe it. I think Manzardo is going to be effective. I think he'll hit lefties enough, and I think he will be fantastic against righties who you face 80% of the time anyways.
True. And it takes everybody some time to get there. And then you have the opportunity to mix in Fry and Arias at first base. I mean, we know Gabriel Arias' arm and defense are kind of wasted there. And, it's a guy you also probably want to try to figure out if he's going to hit lefties too. Like I know his numbers were pretty paltry against lefties last year, but I also don't think you can just not play him against them this year because you're trying to get answers. So he has to work in against lefties somewhere. and that might be a good spot to do it. And then David Fry, I'm really glad David Fry made this roster because I think he can, gives you the opportunity to bat Austin Hedges a lot less, which is great. And then he could play some first base too against left-handers, and you can really kill it with platoons, which is what this team really needs. And David Fry was pretty good last year. So excited to see what they do there. I think this is going to be a fun mix and match team. I don't know if they're going to win and hit, score a lot of runs more than they did last year. I think they will, but I'm at least excited to see how they mix and match and how we see some more different combinations in the lineup than we did a year ago, because that was pretty frustrating. All right. We'll talk a little bit about prospects. The number to know before we jump into that is 2.118. Why does that number matter? We will talk about that in just a moment. Whether you're headed to opening day or, hey, an NBA playoff game, those are coming up not too far in the future. NHL playoff games, comedy shows. I'm always looking to go to a good comedy show. If you're someone who likes to plan last minute, Gametime is the app for you when you're talking about any events. Get concerts, almost outdoor concert season here, relatively soon. It doesn't feel like it, but any kind of event you want to go to, concerts, playoff games, comedy shows, Gametime is the best way to do it. You can get all the prices up front, so you're not putting a $20 ticket in your cart, getting to checkout, it says $80. And you're like, where did that come from? None of that with Gametime. Buy tickets in 2 seconds with 2 taps, and they give you pictures of your seat. I love that. You get to see where you sit. In Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section row for less, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference, not just 110%. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDON for $20 off that first purchase. So download the app. If you haven't used it yet, terms apply. Create that account and use our code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Jeff, you want to take a stab at why 2.118 matters?
Because it's kind of looks like pi being, 3.14.
I knew you were going to say pi. I don't know why. I just knew you were going to say something about pi. Pi is gone. It's past us. It was 2 weeks ago.
Fair enough.
This is not pi negative or pi plus, one of our fancy stats. No, 2.118 was the Super 2 service cutoff last year for Super 2 players. And I'm going to say Kyle Manzardo will be a Super 2 player. That means you have to have 2.118 seasons of service to be a Super 2 player, if that's the cutoff. That cutoff changes every year, by the way. It depends on when other prospects are promoted. It isn't the same date every year for Super 2. That was just last year's date. I'm going to say that Kyle Manzardo will be called up early enough, though, to be a Super 2 player in the future. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You agree?
No. I said yes, so I was thinking about I still think they're going to want to give all these guys an opportunity. And again, I don't know if it's necessarily about avoiding Super 2, but if it gets close, then they will avoid it. But if you really want to see Florial, you got to figure it out this year. If you want to see Arias, you got to figure it out this year. If Valera gets healthy, you have to figure it out this year because he's out of options next year. So,
you're waiting quite a while.
I know. I know,
crazy.
But there is a lot of guys, and at some point you have to sit down and actually start figuring out what you're doing with the glut.
Yeah, you got to be serious about it for a change. All right, other first base prospects in the system that are not just Kyle Manzardo. John Kensey Noel, who, hits the ball hard when he does, but, he makes a lot of bad contact too. I know, he plays some outfield, but we both agree that first base is probably his long-term position if he's going to make it. He is out of options after this year too, so are you going to see him? We both think there's a chance Ralphie Velasquez will hit so much that Cleveland will say, you know what, we're not going to wait on you to play catcher. We're going to get you up the system because you're hitting, and maybe it'll be first base. There's CJ Kafis, who doesn't have a lot of power, but I think there's maybe more in there. I just don't know how much. Mike Caprice is an older prospect who we've both liked in the past. He's had some injury issues, unfortunately, and we thought it was close to happening for him, but the injuries have kind of set him back a little bit. And then way, way down below, if you want to get excited about someone who hasn't even played in the United States yet, is Luis Morejo, who is a 17-year-old first baseman who had some really promising exit velocity numbers, as posted by our friend at Baseball America and friend of the show, Jeff Ponce.
I got nothing there. When it comes to those guys that are that far out, I mean, that's it. And
I only had it because of Jeff Ponce, so
it's not a spectacular group. Ralphie, we're hoping will stick a catcher. Kafis will probably play some outfield. I'm not the biggest on Noel, as people know, and Prize. It's just unfortunate. Like when you are the age of that guy, you can't afford to have that missed time with it. Like last year, he might have gotten an opportunity if he was healthy, and it just stinks for a lot of guys. That is the case, but unfortunately, health was an issue almost across the board last year. Yeah,
and he might have to play outfield this year because Manzardo is going to play first base at AAA. So Prize probably goes to the outfield, next to Miles Straw in Columbus. So can learn to play the outfield for Miles Straw and how to stay healthy. Maybe that would help. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance we see Noel this year. Although I think the odds are as good as for both of these. Either Noel making it to the majors this year just to see what they have because he's out of options next year, or him just being traded and just saying, here's John Kenson Noel, we'll take Steven Hajar or, that kind of trade again. I would not be surprised if they do have to clear a 40-man spot. I think the odds of both of those are.
Do you think he has that much value? Like, I mean, I think he definitely has less than Benson had. Like,
I mean, I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1 comparison. I'm just saying they might trade him for like a high A prospect.
Like, I just
maybe. I don't think there's a lot of value there. I don't.
No, I don't think there's much to get from him, I guess is what I'm basically saying.
He has more options than Ben Lively, Jeff.
Ben Lively's got tons of options. Leave the man alone. Leave the man alone.
I'm rooting for John Kenson Noel though, because he's a fun dude and he just had a kid last year and he's a big goofy kid. He's a lot like Oscar Gonzalez. I am rooting for the kid. I just don't think there's enough offensive consistency to do it because Lord knows he'd be a fan favorite if things worked out for him. He'd be a 40 home run hitter, and he's just a cartoon character of a dude in terms of size and personality, but I don't see it. I think it'd be great. I know we want Ralphie to stick a catcher, but I think it'd be great if he just hits so much that they're like, you know what, screw it. We'll accelerate the timeline and do what we have to do.
No, I agree. It'd be nice as well. I'm up for anything that lets this offense get better.
Yeah, and soon. All right. We really want to talk about, let's be honest, Harris draft prospects. This is potentially a very fun class. I know the history of drafting first baseman is not pretty, as Jeff has pointed out many times.
It's actually pretty in drafting prep first baseman, weirdly enough.
Interesting. Well, there are some prep guys on this list. We have Charlie Condon on here because we just don't know where he's going to play. It could be first base. Obviously, there's Nick Kurtz. We are still the Nick Kurtz, Merry Kurtzmas podcast, even though things are looking pretty unlikely at 1-1 these days.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I've abandoned my guy. I still love Nick Kurtz, but
you've abandoned him.
I have not abandoned him.
You've abandoned him. You've thrown him to the curb, and you're like, sorry, not good enough.
I have a weird obsession with Tennessee prospects, so I'm really into Blake Burke these days. That's where I'm at.
Because they've been so successful. I mean, I was a big Christian Stewart fan and a big Nick Senzel fan and it has not gone well. Tennessee has not trained. I mean, Garrett Crochet got hurt, but even their top prospects have not translated pitching wise. So yeah, let's mine a program that's not been successful.
Yeah. I like Derek Bender from Coastal Carolina. I got my CCs mixed up because we also have friend of the show, Cole Mathis, on the list. I like Derek Bender. He's a David Fry type to me. He can play a little bit of catcher, a little first, maybe some outfield, DH. Great Cape data. Outside of Blake Burke, I really like him on this list.
Yeah, he's a fun player. I like Cole Mathis because it's very clear that he is hurt. He is not playing well. And he's a guy you're going to be able to buy cheap. And I think if he had played like he played last year, I think he's going in the top 30 picks. That's just how it is right now. I mean, I've had people tell me James Tibbs is not getting to 36, who we talk about here, who's my dude in this class. One of the hardest guys to strike out, great Cape data, probably can play left field, maybe right in a pinch, but it's not ideal. It's not that like 8 to 40 range is not great. Then it evens out. It really does. But that's why this is not a great draft class. But if Mathis was hitting, he'd be no doubt first rounder. Because I know people who thought he was a prospect as a hitter or a pitcher. So there was value there. So I kind of dig him. Aiden Harris is a fun high school kid. That was one of my additions to the list. He's going to be 17 on draft day, very young, 6'4", very strong, maybe the best raw power in the entire class. Definitely, to me, the best raw power in the high school class. It's just, there's some swing and miss. He's a little pull happy, which, hey, we're learning now that pull happy is a positive trait, not a negative. So maybe Cleveland isn't the right organization to develop this profile, but I think he's a lot of fun. So I think you have to include him on a list of, and again, high school first basemen actually have a much higher success rate. Much. It was I think it was either one of the top 2 safest positions draft in the top 15 picks of the draft. It was early high school players. But yeah, I think
a lot of college guys move off of wherever they're drafted at and end up at first base. That's why I kind of wonder, like, do we think there's a chance that Charlie Conlon winds up at first base? I know you keep saying he's probably a better athlete than people give him credit for, but I don't know where his position is. I mean, I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think you're buying wherever he's playing defensively. You're buying the bat because he's going at this.
But I think he
can point in time. He's going top 3.
I think he's probably a corner outfielder.
That's fair. I was hoping we'd see Nick Kurtz at a corner outfield this year, but we haven't seen much of him at all. Nobody's ever asked us about Tommy White. I'm surprised nobody has asked us about Tommy White. You and I just don't love the approach. It's the same thing as Jac Cagliaone, who's also first base on this list. You know, the contact rates are fantastic. The exit velocities are great. The power is immense. But when you look at those chase rates in college, it's not going to get better when you get drafted in the pros. It's going to get worse. So if you don't have a chase rate that is translatable to Major League Baseball, I just have a lot of concerns about how much power you're going to get to in the majors. Because again, you know, we talk about Josh Naylor is a unicorn. Honestly, like we talked about, like Oscar Gonzalez, Cleveland wants a unicorn there, and other players. Josh Naylor is kind of a unicorn in terms of not walking a lot, being able to hit. And, you know, Tommy White and Jac Cagliaone are probably in the same category. They're just going to have to be unicorns and hit because their chase rates are not good. They're not patient hitters. That's our big concerns there.
No, in that
real quickly,
people talk about contacts rate aren't always great. It's that chase rate is when we hear about great college guys who fail, it's chase rate. Yeah.
The next time we talk to you, we'll be getting ready for Guardians Athletics. We'll give you our season predictions and some other fun stuff. And we'll see. Are the Guardians going to have any extensions to announce? We'll touch on that maybe on Thursday's show. So stay tuned for that. We still got to do our second base preview. We'll get to that. We're not going to neglect Andres Jimenez. We'll just have to work that in at some point in the season with all these West Coast games. But extension predictions, season predictions, one day away from baseball that counts. Let's go.
Thank you all for listening. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. And a quick note, make sure if you are a T-Mobile user, go get free MLB TV. Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.